Have you ever wondered if the Bible you have on your shelf is actually incomplete? For centuries, the Western world has accepted a standard canon of 66 books. But deep in the mountains of East Africa, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has guarded a much older, more mysterious treasure for over 1,600 years. They possess the oldest and most complete Bible in existence, containing not 66, but 81 books. While the rest of the world debated which texts to censor or burn, Ethiopian monks preserved the so-called forbidden knowledge. These are the texts that explain the terrifying origins of demons, the detailed history of the fallen angels, and the true reason for the Great Flood. Today, we are opening the pages of the Ethiopian Bible to uncover the secrets that the Western Church decided you were not ready to hear. The most significant difference begins with the Book of Enoch. In the Standard Bible, the mysterious figure of Enoch is mentioned only briefly in Genesis as a man who walked with God and then simply vanished because God took him. But in the Ethiopian Bible, Enoch isn't just a footnote. He is the central figure of an epic saga. The Book of Enoch fills in the massive gaps left by the Book of Genesis. It describes a group of 200 angels known as the Watchers. These were not the benevolent protectors we imagine, but celestial beings who rebelled against heaven. Led by an angel named Samith, they descended onto Mount Hermon and made a pact to corrupt humanity. They didn't just fall from grace, they brought with them forbidden technology. The text details how they taught humans how to make swords and weapons of war, how to use cosmetics to seduce, and the secrets of sorcery, astrology, and root cutting. This narrative suggests that the sudden leap in human civilization and violence wasn't just natural evolution, but the result of an unauthorized transfer of celestial knowledge. But the consequences of this rebellion were even darker. The Ethiopian texts reveal the disturbing truth about the Nephilim. The Standard Bible calls them mighty men of old, but the Book of Enoch describes them as monstrous hybrids born from the union of these watchers and human women. These giants were said to be 3,000 ells tall. They were insatiable. They devoured the labor of all the sons of men, and when humans could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and began to devour mankind itself. This changes the entire context of the Great Flood. In the version most of us know, the flood was sent because humans were simply wicked or sinful. But the Ethiopian texts paint a picture of a cosmic sterilization. The earth had been genetically contaminated by a non-human bloodline. The flood wasn't just a punishment. It was a rescue mission to wipe out these hybrid abominations and save the human genome from total extinction. Another fascinating revelation found in the Ethiopian canon concerns the hierarchy of heaven. If you ask most Western Christians to name the Archangels, they will likely mention Michael, Gabriel, and perhaps Raphael. However, the Ethiopian tradition, drawing from the Book of Enoch and other texts, reveals that there are 7 archangels who stand before the throne of God. The Council of Rome in the 8th century deliberately banned the names of the other angels to prevent angel worship, effectively censoring the celestial hierarchy. In the Ethiopian Bible, we meet Uriel, the angel of thunder and terror who watches over Tartarus, Ragel, who executes judgment on the world of the luminaries, and Sarakiel, who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. This portrays a spiritual world that is far more complex, structured, and active than the simplified version presented in Western theology. The Ethiopian Bible also preserves the Book of Jubilees, often called the Little Genesis. This book offers a specific and rigid structure for time itself, insisting on a solar calendar of 364 days. It argues that observing a lunar calendar, or losing track of the true timeline, causes believers to miss the sacred festivals appointed by God. According to Jubilees, if your calendar is wrong, your worship is out of sync with heaven. This book also introduces a more nuanced figure of evil known as Mastema. Unlike the chaotic Satan of popular culture, Mastema negotiates with God. The text describes a chilling moment where Mastema asks God not to destroy all the spirits of the Nephilim, but to leave him 1/10 of them to test and corrupt humanity. Surprisingly, God agrees. This implies a terrifying theological concept, that the forces of evil and temptation are allowed to exist as a necessary part of the divine plan to test the hearts of men. Perhaps the most graphic and unsettling text preserved in this collection is the Apocalypse of Peter. While the West included the Revelation of John, the Ethiopian tradition held onto Peter's vision of the afterlife. This text provides a brutally specific tour of hell. It doesn't just describe fire, it describes the punishment fitting the crime. It details blasphemers hanging by their tongues over fire, and specific torments for adulterers and those who were wealthy but uncharitable. It was likely considered too traumatic for the general public by early church fathers, which is why it was eventually excluded from the Western canon. However, it also contains a hint of hope that was considered dangerous heresy by Rome, the idea that through the intense prayers of the righteous in heaven, some souls might eventually be saved from the torments of hell. So why were these 81 books narrowed down to 66? Why was this library of knowledge dismantled? Historians argue it was a matter of control. The books found in the Ethiopian Bible paint a world where the supernatural bleeds into the natural, where history is influenced by angel, giant, and demon, and where the cosmos is far stranger than we are comfortable admitting. By removing these texts, the narrative was simplified, making it easier to standardize doctrine across the Roman Empire. But the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, isolated in the mountains of Africa, never bowed to that pressure. They kept the fire burning. They kept the full story alive. Today, as modern archaeology uncovers texts like the Dead Sea Scrolls, we are finding that the Ethiopian Bible was right all along. The fragments found in the caves of Qumran match the Ethiopian texts almost perfectly, proving that these books were indeed read and revered by the ancient faithful. The Ethiopian Bible is not just a religious artifact. It is a time capsule that forces us to ask the ultimate question: what else has been hidden from us, and are we finally ready to handle the whole truth?